The impossible ship. The UES Horizon decelerated as it approached the massive structure floating in the void between stars. Captain Ilara Chen stood on the bridge, arms crossed, watching the alien station grow larger on the main view screen. It resembled a massive snowflake made of gleaming metal and crystalline materials, delicate-looking but spanning nearly 15 kilometers across. "Comms are picking up a transmission, Captain," Lieutenant Reyes announced. "Multiple frequencies, different encoding patterns. They're trying to figure out how to talk to us." Chen nodded. "Send the first contact package on all frequencies. Let's see if our linguists' work pays off." Humanity had been watching the station for nearly a decade, a massive construction project occurring in what they had thought was unclaimed space. The decision to make contact had been controversial, but ultimately inevitable. Humanity had expanded to 3 star systems, and sooner or later, they would have been noticed. "Better to introduce yourself than be discovered," Chen thought. "Captain, they've acknowledged receipt of our package," Reyes said, excitement bleeding into his professional tone. "Translation algorithms are analyzing their response now." The bridge crew fell silent as the alien communication was processed. Chen felt her heart race. Humanity's first official contact with an extraterrestrial civilization was happening on her watch. "Translation complete," the AI announced. "Confidence level 73%. Text scrolled across the screen. "Unidentified vessel. Maintain position. Representatives of the Galactic Coalition will establish communication protocols. Do not approach further. Friendly." Commander Jackson, her XO, muttered. Chen shrugged. "Cautious. I'd be the same in their position." She turned to Reyes. "Acknowledge and comply. Maintain position at 1 light-minute distance." Hours later, Chen sat across from 3 alien beings in the Horizon's conference room. The Coalition had sent a delegation via a small shuttle, a gesture that both honored diplomatic protocol and allowed them to inspect the human vessel up close. The aliens were remarkably diverse. The apparent leader, who introduced himself as High Arbiter Vox Nera, resembled a tall humanoid with iridescent blue skin and 4 arms. His companion, Science Director Tazeri, had the appearance of an upright feline with mottled fur and vertical pupils. The third, Security Commander Dreth, was a massive reptilian being with armored scales and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "Your vessel's design is unusual," Vox Nera said, his translator device rendering his speech into perfect English. "Our scans indicate propulsion technology that should not be possible for an emerging civilization." Chen smiled diplomatically. "The Horizon is our most advanced exploration vessel. We're quite proud of her capabilities. Your propulsion system appears to utilize antimatter annihilation." Tazeri interjected, her eyes wide. "Our scans must be in error." "No error," Chen replied. "The Horizon is powered by a 3rd-generation antimatter reactor with variable geometry magnetic containment fields." The 3 aliens exchanged glances that transcended species differences, universal expressions of shock and disbelief. Antimatter technology is classified as Tier 3 technology under Coalition protocols. Dreth rumbled. "No species has successfully deployed stable antimatter drives without first achieving planetary unification and passing through at least 2 centuries of controlled fusion development." Chen tried not to let her pride show too obviously. Humanity has always been in a hurry to reach the stars. Science Director Tazeri's whiskers twitched rapidly. "This is unprecedented. The containment challenges alone. May we inspect your engineering section?" "Of course," Chen said, standing. "Our chief engineer, Dr. Ibarra, would be delighted to explain our systems." The tour of the Horizon's engineering section seemed to simultaneously fascinate and terrify the alien delegation. Dr. Mira Ibarra, with barely contained enthusiasm, led them through the ship's massive antimatter production and containment systems. "The breakthrough came when we stopped trying to perfect static containment fields," Ibarra explained, displaying holographic representations of the ship's core. Instead, we developed a dynamic, self-correcting field matrix that adapts to microscopic fluctuations in the antimatter stream. But the computational requirements for real-time field adjustments at that scale trailed off, clearly calculating the processing power needed. Yes, that was a challenge, Ibarra admitted with a grin. We had to develop specialized quantum processors dedicated solely to containment field management. They operate independently from the main ship systems as a safety precaution. Security Commander Dreth had remained silent during most of the tour, but now he spoke directly to Chen. Your species handles the most dangerous substance in the universe with remarkable casualness, Captain. Chen considered this. I wouldn't call it casualness, Commander. We respect the danger, but humanity has always pushed boundaries, especially when they're told something is impossible. And the risks. Dreth pressed. A containment failure would vaporize this vessel instantly. We've had failures, Chen acknowledged soberly. The Jakarta station disaster claimed over 300 lives 15 years ago, but we learned, improved, and continued forward. Vox-Nera seemed troubled. In coalition space, such a disaster would have ended antimatter research for generations. That's not how we operate, Chen replied simply. Later, as the alien delegation prepared to return to their shuttle, High Arbiter Vox-Nera pulled Chen aside. Captain, I must be candid. Your arrival with this technology has created a significant political situation. The Coalition Council will need to convene an emergency session. Chen frowned. We came in peace, Arbiter. We're explorers, not conquerors. I believe your intentions, Vox-Nera said, his four hands making a complex gesture that her translator didn't interpret. But you must understand. Antimatter technology in the hands of a non-unified species represents an unprecedented situation. Some council members will view humanity as a destabilizing threat, because we develop technology out of the approved sequence. Chen asked, not hiding her skepticism. Partially, Vox-Nera admitted, but also because your willingness to accept such catastrophic risks suggests a mindset that some will find concerning. No coalition species would have continued antimatter research after suffering casualties like those you described. Different evolutionary paths, different risk calculations, Chen replied. We've had to overcome significant challenges on our world. It's shaped our approach to problems. Vox-Nera studied her with alien eyes that somehow conveyed perfect understanding. Indeed, and that is precisely what will frighten them. After the delegation departed, Chen called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. So, Commander Jackson said after she relayed the conversation, we've managed to terrify an interstellar coalition of advanced species simply by showing up with our engine running. Dr. Ibarra laughed. If they're scared of our propulsion system, let's hope they never learn about the quantum tunneling experiments back home. Chen silenced them with a raised hand. This isn't a joke. The Arbiter strongly implied that some coalition factions might consider humanity a threat that needs to be managed. Managed how? Security Chief Ortiz asked, instantly alert. Unknown, Chen replied. But I'm accelerating our first contact protocols. Lieutenant Reyes, prepare a data package for immediate transmission to Earth. Include everything we've learned about the coalition and flag it as urgent. You think they might try to restrict our movements? Jackson asked. Chen stared at the viewport where the alien station glittered in the distance. I think humanity just crashed a very established party with technology that, by their standards, we shouldn't have for another century. They're going to want to understand how that happened and ensure it doesn't upset their power balance. What's our play, Captain? Ortiz asked. Chen straightened her uniform. We continue as planned. Diplomatic, transparent, but firm. We didn't fight our way to the stars to be told where we can and can't go. She smiled slightly. And we quietly bring the rest of the exploration fleet to standby alert. Just in case. 2 days later, the Coalition's response arrived in the form of a massive vessel that dwarfed the horizon. It dropped out of what appeared to be a localized fold in spacetime, an FTL technology unlike anything humanity had developed. That's substantial, Jackson commented as they watched the behemoth approach. Chen nodded. Seems we've raided a visit from the higher-ups. The message that followed confirmed her suspicion. An official coalition evaluation team would be boarding the horizon to conduct a species capability assessment. They want to figure out if we're a threat, Ortiz translated, or an opportunity, Chen countered. Let's make sure they see both. The paradigm shift. The coalition evaluation team consisted of 12 representatives from different species, each with specializations ranging from technology assessment to cultural analysis. Their leader, Grand Evaluator Zenlox, resembled a tall, slender humanoid with skin that shifted colors with her moods, currently a cautious amber. "We appreciate your cooperation, Captain Chen," she said as they convened in the Horizon's largest conference room. "This assessment will help determine humanity's proper integration path into the galactic community." Chen noted the careful wording. "We look forward to peaceful relations, Evaluator. However, I should clarify that humanity determines its own path." A ripple of color, deep red, passed across Zenlox's skin before settling back to amber. "Of course. Nevertheless, there are established protocols for emerging species." The evaluations began immediately. Teams of aliens scrutinized the Horizon systems, interviewed crew members, and analyzed Earth's transmitted history and cultural databases. Chen assigned senior officers to accompany each group, both as guides and to ensure they didn't access classified systems. Commander Jackson found Chen in her ready room after the first day, looking exhausted. "They're thorough, I'll give them that." "Impressions?" Chen asked. "Mixed." The technology specialists seemed genuinely impressed, particularly with our antimatter containment solutions. The cultural analysts seem concerned. They've been focusing a lot on Earth's conflicts and resource competitions. Chen nodded. "They're trying to determine if we're responsible enough for the technology we possess." "Are we?" Jackson asked with a wry smile. Chen considered the question seriously. Historically, probably not. But necessity drives innovation, and Earth was running out of time. Climate crisis, resource depletion. We needed the stars, and conventional propulsion wouldn't get us there fast enough. "So we rolled the dice on antimatter," Jackson concluded. "And won," Chen added. On the third day, Chen was summoned to meet privately with Grand Evaluator Zenlox and the Coalition's security administrator, a massive entity named Ketraxis who appeared to be composed of interlocking crystalline structures. "Captain," Zenlox began, her skin a formal blue, "we've completed our preliminary assessment." Chen waited, maintaining a neutral expression. "Your antimatter technology is remarkable," Zenlox continued. "However, our consensus is that its continued use by an unregulated species presents unacceptable risks to regional stability." "Unregulated," Chen repeated carefully. The crystalline security administrator's voice resonated from somewhere within its structure. "Humanity has not established unified planetary governance, Captain. You maintain competing nation-states, ideological blocs, and independent corporate entities, all with access to antimatter technology. That diversity drives our innovation," Chen countered. "It also creates unpredictability," Ketraxis resonated. "The Coalition cannot permit unrestricted antimatter-capable vessels to operate in shared space without appropriate oversight." There it was, the restriction Vox Nera had hinted at. "What sort of oversight are you proposing?" Chen asked, keeping her voice level. "A reasonable arrangement," Zenlox said, her skin shifting to a conciliatory green. "Coalition inspectors aboard all human vessels using antimatter propulsion, restricted travel corridors, technology sharing agreements that would give humanity access to safer alternatives. In exchange for us abandoning our primary propulsion technology," Chen concluded. "For the greater security of all species," Ketraxis added. Chen considered her response carefully. "I'm not authorized to negotiate technology restrictions on behalf of Earth. However, I can tell you that humanity won't accept external control over technologies we've developed independently. This isn't a negotiation, Captain, Ketraxis said, its crystalline structure hardening visibly. This is a security requirement. Before Chen could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. She tapped her comm unit. Chen here. What's happening? Captain, we're detecting a massive energy surge from the Coalition station. Lieutenant Reyes reported. Some kind of spatial distortion is forming, and it's growing rapidly. On my way, Chen said, standing. You'll excuse me, evaluator. It seems we have a situation. On the bridge, the view screen showed a swirling vortex of energy expanding from the Coalition station. Analysis, Chen demanded. It appears to be an uncontrolled spatial rift, Science Officer Lai reported, consistent with a catastrophic failure in whatever drive system they use for FTL travel. The station is broadcasting emergency signals, Rise added. They're evacuating, but the rift is expanding faster than their shuttles can escape its influence. Chen turned to find Genlox and Ketraxis had followed her to the bridge. What's happening to your station? Genlox's skin had paled to a sickly white. Primary fold space generator collapse. The containment fields must have failed. Can it be stabilized? Chen asked. Not once cascade failure begins, Ketraxis replied, its crystalline form vibrating with what might have been agitation. The rift will continue expanding until it consumes everything within 3 light minutes. Chen processed this information rapidly, including the horizon and all evacuation vessels. Correct, Genlox confirmed. We have protocols for this scenario. Authorized ships will attempt to reach minimum safe distance. Others, she didn't finish the sentence. There are thousands of beings on that station, Chen said. They can't all evacuate in time. It is regrettable, Ketraxis stated, but containment failures carry consequences. This is why we approach dangerous technologies with such caution. Chen ignored the pointed comment, her mind racing through options. She turned to Dr. Ibarra, who had rushed to the bridge during the alert. Mira, could we use the antimatter reactor to generate a counter-resonance field? Disrupt the rift's expansion long enough for the evacuation to complete. Ibarra was already running calculations on her tablet. Possibly. We'd need to modify our containment fields to project outward instead of inward. Risky, but theoretically viable. That would require diverting power from your containment systems, Genlox interjected, her skin flashing alarmed patterns. If your antimatter containment fails, we'd be vaporized instantly, Chen finished, along with everyone else if we do nothing. Begin preparations, Dr. Ibarra. Captain, Ketraxis resonated sharply. This action would violate at least 7 Coalition safety protocols. Chen turned to the crystalline being. Your safety protocols won't matter much if that rift consumes your station and everyone on it. Administrator, we're willing to take the risk. Why? Genlox asked, genuinely puzzled. This isn't your station. These aren't your people. Chen held the alien's gaze. Because we can help, so we will. That's what humanity does. The next hour was a blur of frantic activity. The horizon moved dangerously close to the expanding rift, positioning itself between the phenomenon and the evacuation routes. Dr. Ibarra and her engineering team worked miracles, reconfiguring the antimatter reactor to project a stabilizing field that would, hopefully, slow the rift's expansion. Field projectors ready, Captain, Ibarra reported. But I have to warn you, this will strain our containment systems to 92% of theoretical maximum. Any higher, and we risk our own catastrophic failure. Understood, Chen said. Proceed. The horizon shuddered as massive amounts of energy were diverted from its power systems into the experimental field projectors. On the view screen, they watched as invisible forces clashed, the destructive expansion of the spatial rift meeting the desperate human countermeasure. It's working, Lai reported, amazement in his voice. The rift's expansion rate has decreased by 67%. Evacuation status. Chen asked. Coalition vessels are clearing the danger zone, Rise reported. Estimated 12 minutes until all ships are at safe distance. Containment field status, Chen asked Abara. The engineer's face was tense, holding at 94%, above recommended maximum. We got microfractures forming in the field matrix. Can we hold for 12 minutes? Abara met her gaze. We'll make it hold, Captain. Chen noticed Zenlocks and Ketraxes conferring urgently in the corner of the bridge. The Grand Evaluator approached her, skin cycling through multiple colors. Your ship is in grave danger, Captain. Our analysis suggests your containment fields cannot withstand this strain. Then your analysis doesn't account for human determination, Evaluator, Chen replied, not taking her eyes off the status displays. The minutes crawled by as the horizon trembled under the strain. Warning alerts flashed across multiple systems. Twice, Abara had to implement emergency field adjustments to prevent containment collapse. Evacuation complete, Rise finally announced. All coalition vessels report clear of the danger zone. Disengage field projectors, Chen ordered immediately. Return to standard containment configuration. The Horizon systems began powering down from emergency levels. The view screen showed the spatial rift, now expanding unimpeded again, but with the station evacuated and all ships at safe distance. Get us out of here, Lieutenant Park, Chen ordered. Maximum sustainable thrust. The Horizon accelerated away from the danger, pushing its strained systems to their limits one final time. As they reached safe distance, Chen finally allowed herself to relax slightly. Damage report. Antimatter containment systems showing significant stress fractures. Abara reported. We'll need to reduce output to 40% until repairs can be completed. Several secondary systems offline. No casualties. Well done, everyone, Chen said, feeling a profound pride in her crew. She became aware that the coalition representatives were staring at her and the human bridge crew with expressions that transcended species differences, something like awe. You risked your vessel and all aboard, Ketraxes stated, to save beings you've never met, from species not your own. As I said, Chen replied simply. That's what humanity does. 3 days later, after emergency repairs had stabilized the Horizon systems, Chen was summoned to a communication with the full Coalition Council. The massive view screen in the conference room displayed representatives from 27 different species, with Grand Evaluator Zenlocks prominently featured. Captain Ilara Chen. She began formally, her skin a ceremonial purple. The Council has reviewed all data regarding humanity's first contact and subsequent actions during the station crisis. Chen waited, standing tall despite her exhaustion from the grueling repair schedule. Your willingness to risk your vessel to save Coalition lives has been noted, Zenlocks continued. As has the effectiveness of your antimatter technology, even under extreme conditions. The Horizon performed exactly as designed, Chen replied. Though I wouldn't recommend our emergency measures as standard procedure. A ripple of what might have been laughter moved through some of the council members. The Coalition has revised its assessment of humanity, Zenlocks announced. While your species' approach to technological development remains unconventional, your actions demonstrate a level of responsibility that cannot be ignored. Thank you, Evaluator, Chen said cautiously. Therefore, the Council has voted to offer humanity full provisional membership in the Galactic Coalition, with all associated benefits and responsibilities. Chen couldn't hide her surprise. That's generous, Evaluator. However, as I've stated before, I'm not authorized to accept on behalf of Earth, Zenlocks finished. We understand. This is merely the formal extension of the offer. Your leaders may consider it at their discretion. And the matter of our antimatter technology? Chen asked directly. Another council member, a being with features resembling an aquatic mammal, spoke up. The Technology Exchange Committee has proposed a new classification for humanity, non-sequential innovators. Your species will be permitted to maintain your existing technologies, provided you establish appropriate safety protocols in conjunction with coalition advisors, not controllers. Genlox clarified quickly. Advisors. Chen nodded slowly. I believe Earth will find that arrangement acceptable. There is one additional matter, Ketraxis said, its crystalline form glinting in the light. The Security Council requests that humanity consider sharing its antimatter containment field technology. Your approach has demonstrated advantages over existing coalition methods. Chen smiled. I believe that can be arranged as part of a mutual technology exchange. Earth has much to learn from the coalition as well. After the communication ended, Commander Jackson joined Chen at the viewport, where they watched coalition ships rebuilding their damaged station. So, Jackson said, we terrify them with our reckless technology, save a few thousand of them from certain death using said technology, and end up being invited to join their club and share our technological insights. Not bad for first contact, Chen agreed. What happens now? Chen watched the distant work crews, beings from a dozen different species cooperating on the reconstruction efforts. Now humanity takes its place in a much larger community, she said. We'll teach them about taking calculated risks and pushing boundaries, and hopefully they'll teach us about building consensus and planning for the long term. Jackson smiled. Think they're ready for us? Chen thought about the fear she'd seen in alien eyes when they first understood humanity's technological capabilities, and the awe she'd witnessed when they saw what humans were willing to risk for strangers. No, she said honestly, but neither was Earth ready for the stars. Sometimes you have to take the leap anyway.
The ultimatum was a Tuesday morning when the sky cracked open and humanity's peaceful existence shattered like glass. Elena Vasquez was hauling mining equipment to the Luna stations when every communication device in the solar system screamed to life simultaneously. The cargo hauler's ancient radio crackled with static before a voice emerged, cold and mechanical, speaking in perfect English. Inhabitants of the third planet, we are the Vorthari Empire. You have been selected for integration into our domain. Elena's hands tightened on the controls as she watched her scanner light up with impossible readings. Ships were materializing at the edge of the solar system, massive constructs that dwarfed Earth's largest space stations. The voice continued, relentless and emotionless. You have 72 Earth hours to surrender completely. Disarm your pathetic military. Prepare your population for relocation and labor assignment. Your planet's resources will be harvested for the Empire's use. Resistance will result in total extermination. The transmission cut to silence, leaving Elena floating in the void between Earth and Luna, staring at her scanner in disbelief. 47. Red contacts were moving inward from the outer system, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Back on Earth, emergency broadcasts flooded every network. President Morrison appeared on screens worldwide, his face ashen as he tried to project calm authority. Citizens of Earth, we are facing an unprecedented situation. Our space monitoring stations have confirmed the presence of extraterrestrial vessels in our system. We are convening emergency sessions with all world leaders to determine our response. But Elena knew there was no response. She had spent 12 years in the Earth Space Defense Force before her court-martial and discharge. She knew exactly how outgunned humanity was. Earth's entire military consisted of patrol ships designed for asteroid mining disputes and orbital security. Against whatever was coming from the outer system, they might as well throw rocks. Director Sarah Chun stood in the Crisis Command Center beneath Geneva, watching as her staff tried to make sense of the impossible. 47 ships, each broadcasting energy signatures that made nuclear reactors look like candles. Their technology was centuries beyond anything Earth possessed. Ma'am, we're detecting massive electromagnetic disturbances throughout the outer system, reported Lieutenant Kim, his voice shaking. These aren't just ships. They're mobile cities. The largest one is over 15 kilometers long. Chun closed her eyes. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was a nightmare. How long until they reach Earth orbit? At current velocity, approximately 60 hours. That left 12 hours to attempt. The impossible. Chun activated the Global Defense Network, sending coded messages to every military installation on and off-world. It wouldn't be enough. It couldn't be enough. But they had to try. Elena was preparing to dock at Luna City when her personal communicator chirped with an unusual pattern. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. SOS in Old Morse code. But the signal wasn't coming from any registered Earth frequency. It was coming from deep space, from the direction of the Alpha Centauri system. She isolated the signal and ran it through her ship's computer. The encryption was unlike anything in current use, but familiar somehow. It used patterns and algorithms from old Earth colonial exploration protocols, systems that hadn't been used in over 2 centuries. Her great-great-grandfather, Marcus Torres, had been captain of the colony ship Esperanza, launched toward Alpha Centauri in 2157 with 50,000 colonists. The ship had vanished during the journey, along with 7 other colony vessels sent to different star systems. Humanity had mourned them as lost, victims of the vast emptiness between stars. The message decoded slowly, letter by letter. Elena Torres Vasquez, descendant of Captain Marcus Torres. Message authenticated by genetic markers in your pilot registration. We have been watching. We have been preparing. Earth will not stand alone. The lost children of Terra are coming home. Elena's hands trembled as she read the message again. Impossible. The colony ships had been gone for over 200 years. Even if they had survived, reached their destinations, how could they possibly help against the Vorthri Empire? A second message arrived, this one containing star charts and tactical data about the alien fleet. Information that Earth's most advanced sensors couldn't have gathered. The data showed weak points in the Vorthri ships, energy patterns that suggested specific vulnerabilities. Someone had been studying these aliens for a long time. On Earth, panic was spreading despite government attempts to maintain order. Major cities saw mass evacuations as people fled to rural areas, as if distance could protect them from orbital bombardment. Religious groups proclaimed the end times, while scientists desperately tried to analyze the little data they had about the VORT. The aliens themselves remained silent after their initial ultimatum. Their ships continued their steady approach, making no attempt to communicate further. They had delivered their terms. Now they waited for surrender, or prepared for extermination. Elena changed course, burning hard toward Earth. She had to reach. The Defense Command Center had to share what she had learned. The colony ships were out there somewhere, and they claimed to have the power to help. It sounded impossible, but it was the only hope humanity had as their ship screened through Earth's atmosphere. Elena thought about the genetic markers mentioned in the message. Her great-great-grandfather's DNA still carried in her cells after 2 centuries. The colonists hadn't just survived, they had remembered. They had kept track of their bloodlines, their connections to the homeworld they had left behind. Landing. At the Geneva spaceport, Elena pushed through crowds of refugees and emergency personnel. The Defense Command Center was in chaos, with officers shouting contradictory orders and civilians demanding answers no one could provide. She forced her way to Director Chon's office, waving her old space defense credentials. I have information about the Vorthri, Elena announced as she burst through the door. Chon looked up from a tactical display showing Earth's pitifully small defensive fleet. Unless you have a secret weapon hidden somewhere, I don't want to hear it. Chon replied bitterly. Elena placed her datapad on the desk and activated the decoded messages. The colony ships from the 22nd century. They survived. They're out there, and they're coming to help. Chun stared at the data for long moments, then looked up at Elena with desperate hope in her eyes. Even if this is real, how could colonial ships from 2 centuries ago possibly stand against this? She gestured at the display, showing the massive Vorthari fleet. I don't know, Elena admitted, but they've been out there for 200 years. In hostile space, with no support from Earth. Whatever they've become, they've survived things we can't imagine. 68 hours after the ultimatum, as the Vorthari fleet entered the outer edges of Earth's solar system, space itself began to shimmer. Energy readings spiked across the spectrum as something vast and invisible moved through the void. The alien ships suddenly slowed, their sensors detecting anomalies they couldn't explain. Asterisk. Commander Thane of the Vorthari 7th Fleet studied the readings with growing confusion. His ship's advanced sensors showed distortions in space-time, but no vessels. The primitive humans couldn't possibly possess stealth technology advanced enough to fool Vorthari instruments. Commander, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the system, reported his tactical officer. It's almost as if there are hundreds of ships out there, but we can't see them. Thane's reptilian features twisted into a sneer. Impossible. These humans barely possess faster-than-light communication. Continue the approach. Whatever tricks they're playing, they cannot hide from the Empire's might. But deep in space, hidden by technology born from 2 centuries of desperate innovation, Fleet Admiral Kozlov watched the Vorthari advance through sensors that could peer through the quantum foam itself. His great-great-grandfather had been a simple engineer on the Esperanza. Now Kozlov commanded a fleet that would have been impossible to imagine when humanity still huddled around a single star. The lost colonists had found harsh worlds and hostile space. They had faced alien raiders, stellar phenomena that could destroy civilizations, and the endless isolation of deep space. It had forged them into something new, something harder than the humanity they had left behind. Signal from the homeworld. Received and confirmed, reported his communications officer. Elena Torres Vasquez has reached the defense center. She carries the genetic markers. Kozlov nodded. The bloodlines had been tracked, recorded, remembered across the generations. When the time came to return home, they would know their own people. Begin. Phase 1, he ordered. Show the Empire what happens when they threaten the cradle of mankind. As the Vorthari fleet crossed into Earth's outer defensive perimeter, space began to come alive around them. What had seemed like empty void suddenly swarmed with ships that materialized from nothing, their hulls scarred by centuries of use, but gleaming with weapons that had never existed in Earth's history. The colony ships had returned, and they brought with them the fire of humanity refined by centuries of survival against impossible odds. Asterisk. When ghosts return home, Commander, Thane had conquered 17 worlds for the Vorthari Empire. He had seen species beg, fight, and die in their final moments. None had ever surprised him like this. One moment his sensors showed empty space around Earth. The next, hundreds of ships materialized, as if stepping out of another dimension. Impossible, he hissed, his reptilian tongue flicking across sharp teeth. These readings must be false. Humans are a primitive species. His tactical officer's voice cracked with fear. Sir, energy signatures are off the scale. These aren't the ships we cataloged from their homeworld. This technology is beyond our current understanding. The lead human vessel opened a communication channel, and a weathered face appeared on Thane's screen. The man looked human, but there was something different about him. His eyes held depths that spoke of seeing things no earthbound human could. Imagine, I am Fleet Admiral Dmitry Kozlov, commanding the Free Human Colonial Fleet. You have threatened our homeworld. That was your first mistake. His voice carried an accent unlike any Earth dialect. Your second mistake was believing we would let you live to regret it. Thane recovered his composure. The Empire had faced rebellious colonies before. You cannot be serious. My fleet carries the combined might of 47 worlds. Your pathetic colonial ships cannot. The transmission cut off as Kozlov's flagship fired. But it wasn't a weapon the Empire recognized. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, space itself seemed to tear open, creating a wound in reality that swallowed one of the Vorthari destroyers whole. A massive ship simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased. Quantum tunneling weapons. Breathed Thane's science officer. They're manipulating space-time directly. The theoretical energy requirements alone should be impossible. Kozlov's voice returned, calm and implacable. 200 years ago, you would have been right. But you've never faced humans who've spent centuries with their backs against the wall. We learned to make the impossible routine. On Earth, Elena watched the battle unfold from the command center. The colonial ships moved like nothing she had ever seen, phasing in and out of visible space, striking from angles that defied three-dimensional thinking. Each vessel was scarred and patched, clearly ancient, but they fought with a precision that made Earth's best pilots look like children. How is this possible? Director Chun whispered, staring at tactical displays that showed Vorthari ships being systematically dismantled. Elena was studying the colonial ship designs, recognizing elements from the original colony vessels, but seeing modifications that boggled the mind. They've had 2 centuries in deep space, she said slowly. No support from Earth, no safe harbors. They've had to innovate or die. A new voice joined the communication channel, and Alana's breath caught. The face on the screen was younger, but the features were unmistakably familiar. She was looking at her own great-great-grandfather, or rather, his digitized consciousness, preserved in the colonial fleet systems. "Hello, Elena," Captain Narcus Torres said, his image flickering slightly. "I've been watching over our family, lying for generations, waiting for this day. The Torres bloodline has remained strong." Elena found her voice. How are you still alive?" "I'm not, exactly," Marcus replied with a sad smile. "But my memories, my knowledge, my love for our family and our species lives on in the fleet's neural networks. Death couldn't stop me from protecting my descendants. The battle in space was turning into a rout. The Vorthari, for all their technological might, had never faced enemies who thought like the colonists. 200 years of desperate survival had taught the humans to fight dirty, to use physics itself as a weapon, to turn their enemies' strength against them. Fleet Admiral Kozlov coordinated the assault with calm precision. His ships used gravitational lensing to bend their weapons around Vorthari shields. They deployed nanic clouds that ate through alien hulls like acid through paper. Most terrifyingly, they used quantum entanglement to make their ships exist in multiple positions simultaneously, making it impossible to target them effectively. "Status report," Kozlov requested. 17 enemy vessels destroyed, 12 disabled, the rest are attempting to retreat. His tactical officer reported. "Our losses: 0 casualties, minor damage to 3 vessels." Commander Thane's flagship was listing badly, its engines dead, life support failing. He had never experienced defeat like this. The Empire's supposedly invincible technology had been rendered useless by humans who shouldn't have been able to threaten a single Vorthari scout ship. A boarding pod locked onto his hull, and Thane prepared for the end. But instead of death, he found himself facing a human woman in colonial military uniform. She was tall, scarred, with the hard look of someone who had seen too much war. "I'm Captain Sarah Morrison, descendant of Earth President Morrison," she said, her weapon trained. "On him. You're going to send a message to your empire." Thane straightened with what dignity he had left. The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. You will, Morrison replied coldly. Because you're going to tell them exactly what happened here. How 47 of your best warships were destroyed by primitive humans. How your mighty empire was humbled by people you considered beneath notice. She activated a recording device. You're going to explain to your superiors that humanity doesn't just live on Earth anymore. We're spread across the galaxy, and we've learned to survive in places that would kill your soldiers in minutes. We've faced things your empire can't. Imagine, and we've grown strong. Back on Earth, the celebration was muted by awe. Elena stood with Director Chun and the other leaders, watching as the colonial fleet moved into protective formation around their homeworld. The ships were magnificent and terrible, bearing the scars of countless battles fought in the dark between stars. Admiral Kozlov's image appeared on the main screen, and Elena could see the weight of centuries on his shoulders. Earth leadership, he said formally. The colonial fleet returns home after 200 years. We bring with us technologies and knowledge gained through hardship. But more importantly, we bring our loyalty to the cradle of mankind. President Morrison stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. Welcome home, he said simply. Welcome home. Elena felt her ancestors' presence through the neural link as Captain Torres spoke. The family grows strong, he said. Scattered across the stars, but united in purpose. The Vortheree will spread word of this defeat, and others will come. But they will find us ready. What happens now? Elena asked. Kozlov smiled, and for a moment, the weight of command lifted from his features. Now we rebuild. Earth and the colonies. Working together. The galaxy is a dangerous place, but humanity has learned to make danger our ally. As the Vortheree survivors limped away from Earth's system, carrying news of their impossible defeat, humanity began to understand its true place in the universe. They were not the helpless primitives the Empire had expected. They were the children of explorers who had sailed into the unknown and returned transformed. The colony ships that had been launched in hope centuries ago had found their purpose. They had become humanity's shield, forged in the fires of deep space, tempered by impossible challenges. Earth would never stand alone again.